Hello and welcome. I am Gregory James Clark, trainer and lecturer for Qualified Limited and coordinator for the Qualified Limited short courses on quality management. Qualified Limited is a Manchester-based training and education enterprise offering specialised training and coaching in the field of quality management. We are an accredited Chartered Quality Institute training provider for the Level 3 Certificate in Quality Management and the Level 5 Diploma in Quality Management. These are offered at our college in central Manchester, as well as online or as seminars at clients' premises. We also offer quality management short courses on the same basis, consultancy services, and our resident social and research group, the Quality Revolutionaries, which is currently exploring the potential application of total quality management to the science of political economy. Other occupational courses, in addition to those in quality, are also offered through the Focus Awards and Highfield awarding bodies. Our courses are offered both within the UK and internationally to students and delegates through our accreditation with ASIC. If you would like more information, please contact us on 0161 236 2421 or email us at info@qualified.ltd.uk. We hope that you will find this course informative, interesting and useful as a starting point for a career in quality, as a complementary course of study for business, management, economics, health and safety or engineering, or perhaps just for interest to gain an insight into the kind of practices that distinguish high-performing companies from the rest. As you may have read in our course description, the course is divided into 5 easy-to-follow sections that will address our objectives of introducing the subject of quality management, as well as providing an overview of its principal component subjects. The first of these will attempt to answer the all-important question of what is quality. It will then explore the evolution of quality concepts as they emerged during the 20th century. After that, we will move on to discuss the 8 principles of quality management before going on to look at the work of quality advocates such as William Edwards Deming, Walter Shewhart and Joseph Moses Juran. We will be exploring the management system standards that are in common use, ISO 9001, ISO 14001 and the forthcoming ISO 45001 standard that is replacing OSAS 18001 for occupational health and safety. Finally, we will be summarising the well-established award schemes, the EFQM, Investors in People, and some of the tools of quality that are commonly used by practitioners. In order to test your understanding of the subject, a multiple choice test will be presented at the end. There are 10 questions for each of the 5 sections of the course, the answers to many of which will be apparent from what will be taught. A few, however, are a little more searching and may need just a small amount of research around a subject area. So now for our first subject, Introduction to Quality and Evolution of Quality Concepts. For this, we will start at the very beginning and look at how quality is defined. In practice, there are several different ways in which people may choose to define quality. For example, Dr. Joseph Juran defines it as fitness for purpose. But another well-known guru, Philip B. Crosby, defines it as conformance to requirements. we can see from this that in practice, quality is actually a perception. It depends on how we look at it. You may prefer the Oxford English Dictionary definition of degree of excellence or relative nature. How we define quality, though, is far less important than what it stands for. Namely, that in business terms it is in the customer's view. That is to say, the customer's perception of quality is that which is of importance. This is important because all too often the company has what we call a blind spot. That is to say, a failure to recognise or identify deficiencies that the customer has already seen or experienced. This may arise as a result of a difference in perception between the customer and company management. Because of this, we say that honesty with oneself is essential. We must be prepared to admit to ourselves that blind spots exist, and we must seek to find them, not sweep them under the carpet or pretend that they do not exist. Here is an exercise in perception that we sometimes give to our students. We ask them to choose a film that they have seen recently and particularly enjoyed, and then we ask them to find a friend who has seen the same film and not liked it, hated it. So we then say, share your views of that film to identify differences in perception of quality. It need not be a film. It could be a programme on television or a play, or perhaps opinions on politics or a sport such as boxing, and there are plenty of different views on that. Perception is a strange thing, though. It can be changed or influenced once views are shared. Sometimes, therefore, we may need to engage in a dialogue with the customer to elicit feedback, or perhaps practice role reversal, placing oneself in the position of the customer and then asking, would you really be satisfied with that product or level of service? Then there is the question of employees. Is their view of the company the same as your own? Or could their behaviour be suggesting that really there is a difference and you do not know it? These ideas actually go back quite a long time. They are far from being new. You may wish to research or read about a bit of history, or gain examples from prehistory, ancient China, Roman history, Greek history, or the Middle Ages. See how many examples you can find. We list a few in our course for you. The modern discipline of quality management is, however, usually and mostly confined to the mid and late 20th century. Only then did quality management really become a subject in its own right. In the early 20th century and before, the assessment of quality relied predominantly on inspection. That is to say, activities designed to detect or find non-conformances already existing in completed products or services. Later, however, the concept of quality control emerged, with the use of specifications and inspection of completed parts, sub-assemblies and products to design, produce, review, sustain and improve the quality of a product or service. As we will see later in this course, after the 1920s, quality control became augmented with statistical techniques, and the discipline of statistical quality control emerged, involving the collection of statistical data for analysis, which could then be interpreted to solve problems. Statistical process control, or SPC, was later applied to prevent defects by using statistical methods to control the processes by which products were made or services provided. As the century progressed, so did the evolution of quality principles, with quality assurance emerging to guarantee to customers that products would perform to an agreed standard or level of performance. Then, with the help of the gurus, whose work we shall later study, the discipline of quality management, later to be known as total quality management, emerged, involving more people than ever before and focusing on a never-ending journey of continual improvement as opposed to simply meeting the minimum standards as suggested by quality assurance. It can be said that total quality management, or TQM, is the most significant approach to managing operations developed over the last 25 years. It differs from other methods in that it uses what we call a systems approach to achieve the aim of the continuous improvement of products, services and processes. In particular, it recognises differences in perception and the need for effective communication, which is so often a weakness in managerial practice. Total quality management, because it is total, is concerned with more than just quality alone. It is concerned with all aspects of operational performance and guides us not just on what improvement is required, but also on how improvement is to be managed. TQM can therefore be defined as a philosophy of how to approach the organisation of quality improvement, placing both quality and improvement generally at the heart of everything that is done by an operation, as well as activities within an operation. So, what are the values of TQM? We have already said that TQM covers all aspects of operational performance and therefore all parts of the organisation, including all the people in the organisation. It also focuses on meeting the needs and expectations of customers and requires us to examine all of our costs that are related to quality. Another important value of TQM is that of designing quality in rather than inspecting it out. It is no good nowadays to rely on inspection as a means of assuring quality. Quality is not an add-on. It is something that must be built in, and for this it must be considered at the design stage as part of the product planning life cycle. With TQM, it is essential that substandard work or defective product is not passed on. This means that the next person, whoever it may be, is effectively a customer who is entitled to receive a defect-free input upon which to work. An important feature of TQM, therefore, is the concept of the internal customer and the internal supplier. Errors within the service provided within the organisation will eventually affect the product or service that reaches the external customer. Every part of the organisation contributes to external customer satisfaction by ensuring that its own internal customers are satisfied. Another feature of TQM that is especially important is communication. In particular, there is a need for an open climate with an intensive exchange. It is no use managing an organisation without effective communication or where departments are unable or unwilling to share information. The silo effect is still far too common. TQM does not stand still. It is always active. We must continually seek to compare performance with the results that we seek to achieve and try to close any gaps. Measurement, therefore, has to be extensively applied as an aid to performance monitoring against critical success factors and key performance indicators. Improvement, of course, must be driven by innovation and learning. We must learn from our mistakes, but also, within limits, permit people to make mistakes. in the course of experimentation. We must not stifle innovation. We cannot allow our competitors to make all the breakthroughs. All of this naturally requires a quality strategy, and this will provide goals and guidelines for the company. These need to be realistic and, most importantly, underpinned by commitment from the top of the organisation. Something that is here today and gone tomorrow simply will not work. Whenever we talk of TQM, we need to remind ourselves of that small band of individuals, the gurus or advocates of quality, to whom we owe so much. There are several, but on this course we will consider just 3 of them: William Edwards Deming and Joseph Moses Juran, the 2 greatest management philosophers of all time, who taught the Japanese and enabled the transformation of Japanese industry to take shape. And we will also study the work of Dr. Walter Shewhart, from whom much of the inspiration from what was to follow originally came. To conclude this first section of the course, we will introduce the first of these, William Edwards Deming. Born in Sioux City, USA, 1900, he gained a PhD in physics from Yale University and worked at Western Electric, where in 1927 he met Dr. Walter Shewhart, whose work we shall later discuss. He was invited to teach in Japan in 1949, and what followed is legendary. By the 1980s, his teaching, along with that of J.M. Juran, had completely transformed Japanese industry. In 1980, a well-known NBC broadcast in America famously posed the question, if Japan can, why can't we? Deming's 4-day seminars began to attract hundreds of managers now in the West, and in 1987, the then President Ronald Reagan presented Deming with the National Medal of Technology. That is, of course, 27 years after he had received it, the Second Order of the Sacred Treasure, from the Emperor of Japan. Deming published 2 classical books on quality, Out of the Crisis in 1982 and The New Economics in 1993. This, unfortunately, was the year of his death. His best-known contributions to quality are the 14 Points, The Deadly Diseases of Western Management, and The System of Profound Knowledge. One by one, we can study the 14 points and use them to guide us in our quest for quality. In particular, Deming taught us that first and foremost we must create constancy of purpose so as to help us overcome the lack of it, one of the deadly diseases. He also taught us that we should cease to rely on inspection to achieve quality and end purchasing based purely on a price tag. We need to continually seek to improve and ensure that training is instituted to prevent problems where possible, so as to remove costly firefighting afterwards. We need to institute leadership to provide direction, and most importantly, we must drive out fear and break the barriers that impede communication between departments. We need to eliminate slogans, exhortations and targets that do no good for an organisation and can do only harm. Similarly, production quotas and management by objectives and the barriers that rob workers, managers and engineers of their right to take pride in their work. All of these things have no place in a well-run organisation. When all of this is done, we must then put everybody to work to accomplish the transformation. In doing this, we must beware of the deadly diseases, the emphasis on short-term profits, the misuse of performance appraisals, particularly when attached to bonuses, and attempting to manage purely on the basis of visible figures that are unknown or unknowable. Deming's system of profound knowledge requires us to gain appreciation for a system, knowledge of variation, respect for the theory of knowledge, and of course for psychology. As Deming said, there is no substitute for knowledge. To round off this section, we will note two practical demonstrations that Deming gave to his audiences to illustrate two important principles. That is to say, the folly of forced ranking and the dangers of overcompensation of errors. The red beads experiment teaches us that no matter how you may choose to reward or punish people for their performance, ranking will only rank the process against the people, not the reverse. Another of his well-known experiments was the funnel experiment, which teaches us not to overcompensate for an error, for that will merely compound the error. Instead, we must seek to reduce errors by improving the system. In the next section, we will look at the system approach to management in more detail. We will also look at customer focus, leadership, the involvement of people, the process approach, continual improvement, a factual approach to decision making, and mutually beneficial supplier relationships, all of which naturally follow from a study of the Deming philosophy. With this, we come to the end of this unit. If you would like more information, please contact us on 0161 236 2421 or email us at info@qualified.ltd.uk. Also, please remember to follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter and YouTube, where you will find more useful information free of charge.